She fell from the sky just after dusk, the sun slipping behind the buttes like an old secret, and the wind curling dry through the canyon like it knew what sorrow was. The stagecoach hadn't stopped, not really. It had slowed long enough for her to tumble out, skirts catching in a juniper branch, bonnet flying off like a loose prayer. Then it wheeled away in a rattle of hooves and dust, leaving her like something broken flung from a moving cart. I watched from the ridge. I wasn't supposed to be there, had no business in town, not with the whispers still trailing behind me like thorns. But the evening called me down from the high trail, the way it sometimes did when I felt too heavy to breathe alone. That's when I saw her hit the earth, her arms still outstretched like she hadn't decided whether to land or fly. She stood up slow, dazed, brushing grit from the front of her ivory dress. It had ruffles at the collar, silk thread at the hem. Not made for dirt or disappointment. Her hair was yellow-blonde, curled like ribbons of sunlight, and she blinked like she couldn't believe the ground had dared catch her. I didn't move. I didn't speak. A voice came from behind me, low and hissing. "That the girl from back east?" It was the depot hand, chewing a sliver of wood. "Came lookin' for you, I reckon. But when she seen you—" He let the words trail off with a whistle. "Didn't take kindly." No need to answer. I'd seen it in her eyes the moment our gazes locked in front of the post office. Shock first. Then the twitch of revulsion she tried to hide. That was my introduction to Emmeline Stokes. 24, delicate as dandelion silk, and every inch raised on the promise that love would look like lace and lean cheekbones. I was not that promise. The town watched like wolves behind glass windows, pretending to fold linens and sweep porches. They'd seen the letters. The ad I never wrote, placed by an aunt who thought loneliness was curable by marriage. Emmeline had replied. She'd thought estate meant grand, not overgrown. Thought rancher meant rugged, not round. She'd seen me, seen my silence, and then refused to step down from the coach. "I won't do it," she'd whispered to the driver, loud enough for everyone to hear. Not to him. Not to myself. She might have meant kindness. Might have even believed it. But rejection wears the same clothes whether it's dressed in velvet or spit. Her sister climbed down instead. She was younger, plainer by conventional measure. Clara Stokes had quieter eyes, a chin held just a little too still, and hands already calloused from work Emmeline had never touched. She didn't say much, just lifted her carpetbag, stepped into the dirt, and looked at me without flinching. "I can help with the hens," she said. "If the offer's still open." I nodded once. It was all I could manage. That was how she came to the estate. The house was quiet. Always had been. 2 stories, one mostly closed off. Wind scraped the windows at night like it wanted in. Clara swept the floors, fed the chickens, boiled water for the tin tub without complaint. She didn't ask about the scars on my hands or why I slept in the barn most nights. She just stayed. Some days I caught her watching the road, wondering if her sister might send for her. Others, I'd find her tracing the carvings in the banister, slow and thoughtful, like she was listening to what the wood remembered. I never touched her. I never asked for more than what she gave. But one morning, a week after the sky fell open and dropped Emmeline into our dust, I found Clara humming near the back fence. A tune without words. She held a broken-handled bucket in one hand, and a fresh biscuit in the other. She was barefoot. The morning sun caught her hair and turned it copper. I stood there for a long minute, watching. Then I reached into my coat and pulled out the only rose that had bloomed by the pump. It was small and defiant, half crushed by wind but still alive. I placed it on the fence post beside her and walked away. She didn't speak of it. But the next night, the kitchen lantern stayed lit longer than usual. They say time changes things, but sometimes it just softens them. Days folded into weeks. Clara became part of the house, part of the rhythm. She repaired the quilt in the parlor, painted the rocking chair white again. I heard her laugh once, a small thing like a creek just starting to thaw. The town still talked. "She's not even his real bride," someone muttered at the general store. He's got her under obligation. He's fat, not deaf, I replied. They didn't speak again. But gossip grows in dry soil. And when Emmeline came back, it bloomed like wildfire. It was twilight again. I'd just come in from branding. My shoulders ached, the kind of ache that made a man feel older than he was. I smelled the supper before I saw it, something with herbs, sweet and strange. Clara was humming again. Then the front door creaked. She stood there, framed by dusk and memory. Emmeline. Her dress was torn, shoes scuffed. Her curls had lost their defiance. But her eyes were the same, storm-gray, sharp with purpose. I came to take what's mine, she said, voice brittle as glass. Clara froze, the wooden spoon slipping from her fingers and landing with a soft clatter on the floorboards. I looked at Emmeline, then at Clara. One trembling with hunger. One trembling with something deeper. The wind howled low outside. The lamp flickered once, then held. The silence that followed Emmeline's return wasn't empty. It was thick with memory and marrow-deep shame, the kind that lingers long after words have faded. She stood in the doorway, trembling with exhaustion, hunger, and something else, the ache of pride unraveling. Clara didn't move. Her shoulders were squared, but her hands trembled at her sides, quiet as a prayer someone had lost the courage to finish. I came to take what's mine, Emmeline repeated, voice hoarse, eyes darting to the hearth, the table, the familiar comforts now unfamiliar by her absence. No one answered. Wesley watched them both, two women bound by blood, but now standing worlds apart. The air was brittle with judgment, though no townsperson was present to cast it. He could hear the town all the same, in the creak of the porch boards, in the way Clara exhaled without sound. "You're cold," Clara said softly at last. "Sit. I'll warm something." But Emmeline didn't sit. Her chin lifted, pale throat trembling. "You took my place." "No," Clara whispered, meeting her sister's eyes. "You left it." It was a statement without heat. No bitterness. Just truth laid bare like bone. Wesley turned, stepped out onto the porch. The moon hung low, casting silver over the parched grass, and the mountains beyond were cloaked in shadows, as though they, too, had turned their backs. He didn't want to hear them fight. Didn't want to become the rope in a tug-of-war he'd never asked for. The next morning, Emmeline was still there. She hadn't run, not yet. But the house felt different. The warmth had curdled into tension, and each movement was measured, like a dance on cracked ice. Wesley busied himself fixing the east fence, where the last storm had broken 3 posts. He swung the hammer harder than usual, the wood groaning beneath each blow. Clara joined him without a word, carrying nails, her sleeves rolled to the elbow. He noticed her wrist, scratched raw. Probably from blackberry thorns. She'd been out gathering again, always collecting what others overlook. "She say anything?" he asked. Clara shook her head. "Not with meaning." He paused, holding the hammer midair. "She's not owed anything. Not anymore." "I know," Clara said. But something in her voice sounded like grief. That night, thunder rolled in slow, like an old man clearing his throat. The sky glowed faintly with the promise of fire. Lightning danced along the ridge, jagged white bones of light, gone before they could be believed. Wesley lay awake in the barn, sleep too far to reach. He thought of Emmeline's words. "What's mine?" As if hearts were things to claim. As if presence earned possession. He sat up when the smoke hit him. Not thick, not yet. But real. The kind that doesn't drift, it hunts. He was sprinting toward the barn before he could think. The lightning must have struck near the hayloft. Flames licked upward, greedy and red. Inside, a foal cried out, barely weaned, still shaky on its legs. He grabbed the rag by the door, wrapped it around his nose, and went in. The heat was a beast. The air clawed at his lungs. He found the foal cornered near the feed barrels, panicking. He wrapped his arms around it and turned, just as a beam groaned above him. Then there she was. Clara. She was inside before he could stop her, her skirt cinched high, eyes wild with fear and firelight. "I told you," he coughed, stumbling. You don't get to die for pride, she shouted, grabbing his free arm. Not tonight. Together, they staggered out, the foal between them, its hooves sliding in the ash. The roof gave way just behind them, sending sparks into the night. Emmeline stood in the yard, frozen. Her lips parted, hands empty. She hadn't moved. Later, after the flames had been quenched and the foal was safely laid in the stable, Wesley sat beside the trough, chest heaving, hair soaked with sweat and smoke. Clara knelt beside him, pressing a wet cloth to his forehead. She didn't come in, he said quietly. I didn't expect her to. He turned his face toward her. The smoke had reddened her cheeks. Her hair clung to her skin in dark loops. But her eyes, they were steady, unflinching. You could have died, he whispered. So could you. He took her hand then, slowly, like it was something sacred. Her fingers curled into his without hesitation. The next morning was gray and gentle. The kind of morning that feels like a soft apology. Emmeline packed her things into the same carpet-bag she'd brought with Pride weeks before. Her shoes were worn, and her coat hung loose from her shoulders. She didn't ask to stay. At the edge of the property, she turned once. He never looked at me like he looks at you, she said. Clara didn't respond. Some things didn't need answering. By noon, the wind had cleared the last of the smoke smell. Wesley found Clara by the new fence post, a tin bucket beside her. She was shelling peas, fingers moving slow and practiced. He sat beside her without speaking. I never expected to belong anywhere, she said, after a time. Least of all here. He watched her hands, their small grace. I didn't expect anyone to stay. She looked at him then, full and still. But I did. I know. The sun broke through the clouds in pieces, falling across the grass in gold stripes. A bird called once, high and lonely. He reached for her hand again, and this time, he didn't let go. But neither of them saw the rider approaching down the south trail, dust rising behind him, coat flapping. A stranger. A letter in his saddlebag bearing Wesley's full name, marked urgent and sealed with the red wax of a northern estate.